After months of speculation and rumor and speculation swirling around two of MLS's biggest players, we finally have some resolution. Both Evander out in Portland and even more dramatically in Cincinnati with Lucho Acosta. There's been results that some deals have been made, so that leads us to the big question. Who won the Lucho Acosta trade drama? What do you think here, Jason?
Well, let's lay it out first. I mean, this is a domino situation, right? One has to fall before the next one can fall. And it was Lucho Acosta getting sold to, and it's interesting we're saying those words. Let's just all kind of note the moment. We're saying
it's New World Order.
Lucho Acosta was sold to FC Dallas for $5 million plus add-ons. Now, we can come back to that number because I think that number is interesting. But because Lucho Acosta was sold to FC Dallas for $5 million plus add-ons, that meant that Cincinnati could go buy Evander, who wanted out in Portland, for $12 million, bring him in to replace Acosta, and then this led to the Portland Timbers making their own move and grabbing a Frenchman as their next DP is David Acosta. Not confusing at all, by the way, that his name is Acosta, and we also have an Acosta. Do we have
don't worry about that.
And Cacosta and Fuckosta? We need all these Costas. So there was very little leverage left for FC Cincinnati on the sale of Lucho Acosta, considering the drama, right? And I do think it's worth pointing out. This is not like, I'm not even really criticizing Cincinnati. Like, okay, I don't know enough about the relationship, and I know what Lucho said about Chris Albright, right? But I don't know enough about the relationship to say, oh, Cincinnati bottled this, they screwed it up, they just absolutely wasted the opportunity to get a bigger number for Lucho Acosta. I mean, they had conversations with Estudiantes in Argentina, but apparently Estudiantes didn't actually have the money to pay what Cincinnati might want to get for Lucho Acosta.
That'll inhibit something if you don't have the money to pay.
Yeah, Lucho can say, I want to leave, but Cincinnati's not going to let him go for $1 million or something, right? That would be ridiculous. So what could they do? Well, they looked internally, and we heard both FC Dallas and San Jose were interested. In fact, we did a video on that the other day as part of the show. And in the end, it ends up being Dallas. $5 million feels low. Except for because Lucho Acosta is a former MVP in this league, and because he has done some pretty big things and was so important in turning Cincinnati into a title contender and a supporter shield winner and all those things. But he is not young by football standards. He's 30 years old. The likelihood is that his production is going to slow down. It may not drop off a table this year, but in 2 years, if you're Dallas, you may be looking at a player who's not really bringing the kind of level you need in that position. So $5 million is kind of buying him for the next 2 years, right? You're basically saying we hope he has MVP caliber or very good numbers for the next 2 years. 14 goals, 19 assists last year. I believe those are those MLS assists. They're very liberal with their assist numbers over at MLS. But that's the way it's listed, right? 14 goals, 19 assists. That's very good. That's not MVP level because there's Leo Messi's in this league and those kind of things, but it's still very, very good. If you get those numbers at Dallas, they'll be happy spending $5 million on him, right? And then again, meanwhile, Cincinnati replaces him with Evander, who's 26 years old, was an MVP finalist last season. So that number makes a lot more sense for Evander because he still has a couple more years sort of in his prime in order to be what Cincinnati needs him to be to replace Lucho Acosta. He had 15 goals and 15 assists last year. I mean, similar numbers to Lucho. And again, I think your idea is that he still maybe has a little bit more ceiling left. So I think it kind of all makes sense. It's really hard to find a winner here. I actually think Cincinnati's probably going to benefit dramatically from this. They get rid of the drama with Lucho Acosta. As much as they might be sad to see him go, little bittersweet exit for a guy who was a hero in Cincinnati. If he didn't want to be there, he didn't want to be there. You can't make him happy if he's already decided he just can't do it in Cincinnati anymore. He's been angling for a move for a while now. They get a player who wanted out of Portland who's going to feel like the man, right? They spent $12 million on him. That sends a message to Evander. We want you to be the guy. We think you can be better than that's the message you send, right? That's what Chris Albright tells Evander. We think you can be better than Lucho. Like, come help us win the title that's evaded us to this point. And then, obviously, Portland, who, again, the numbers weren't working in terms of what Evander wanted for them, what they wanted, what he wanted to be paid. They took $6 million and they signed David Acosta from Lens in France. He's 24, so they, again, they reset their clock on their DP. Now, he's not proven in this league the way that Evander and Lucho Acosta are, so they are taking more of a risk in that regard. But I think if you trust their scouting, and there may be some doubts about that, but if you trust their scouting, they got Evander right. Eventually, they got Evander right. It took a little while before he got going, but eventually they got Evander right. Then you hope that Acosta is the guy. 4 goals, 3 assists in 1,500 minutes last year in France, right? So again, 24, maybe this is where the level up thing happens for him.
Yeah, Portland gets more time. We'll see if the on-field, I think Portland might become the winner depending on the performance that they get out of Da Costa. He's a Portuguese youth international playing at a decent level in France. The money might work out for him in the end, but I think it kind of depends on the performance on the field. But from strictly a drama perspective, this is interesting. So the 2 players that made the most stink at the end of the season, that were agitating for a move most, both go to different places where you could maybe pick apart the reasons for being upset. So Evander immediately said, fans deserve more than what the people in power here have. And then he goes to Cincinnati, where Lucho Acosta complained that this isn't the sort of leadership that I want to work for either. So will Evander do that again if he feels the same way Acosta did in Cincinnati? And then if Acosta in Cincinnati didn't like the leadership there, who turned around one of the worst performing teams into one of the highest performing teams, is going to Dallas, which is going from being a bad team to trading away a lot of their existing assets, and people don't exactly sing the highest praises for leadership there. Will this just push the drama triangle to the next location?
So, yeah, we should pause on Dallas for a second because we didn't really consider them here. I mean, partly because it is kind of like a wow, what's going on in Dallas? This is overhaul, right? This is not quite. I don't think they had the biggest roster turnover in the league. I think maybe that's New England, who dumped 14 players or something like that. But Dallas did obviously trade Jesus Ferreira and Paul Arriola to Seattle, right? They looked like they brought in Brian Quill, who was at New Mexico United, but had been in the FC Dallas system before that. Eric Quill. So they're going with an unproven coach in terms of MLS, done something in the lower divisions, and I think he deserves an opportunity to move up. But Dallas is clearly going with a budget option as their head coach, right? Yep. Whatever you want to say about how great it is to see a championship coach get an opportunity in Major League Soccer, I keep doing it. Eric Quill cannot command a big number from Dallas until he proves himself. So they've gone budget-minded with their coach. They've traded 2 of their biggest names from the most recent era of reasonable success for them, right? Let's not forget that Jesus Ferreira was nearly a 20-goal scorer in this league a couple of seasons ago. It's been a little while. But, he's at least a name. And, of course, they developed him, right? This is a team that prides itself on developing their players from their academy, and he was one of their big names who was still with the club. So going and getting Lucho Acosta, is this sort of a Band-Aid kind of signing? $5 million is significant for Dallas, right? And they're paying cash. This is not, we're trading $5 million of GAM. Right, they're paying cash for Lucho. This is a cash for trade, not a tradable assets kind of situation.
Yeah,
and so you can no longer say, based on what you've witnessed in the offseason, you might say, well, Dallas is going cheap, but it's kind of hard to say Dallas is being cheap if they're dropping $5 million on Lucho Acosta. Now, that's different than maybe $10 million on a South American player who doesn't have an MLS profile, who you're not sure is going to be great, but you might want to sell one day for 15. If you're spending $5 million on Lucho Acosta, that's $5 million into that asset, an asset that's only going to decline in value over time. You're not selling Lucho Acosta for $8 million in 3 years. It's not happening. He's going to be 33 years old. So this feels like a win now kind of thing for a team that's not in a position to really claim they're ready to win now. So I'm a little thrown by that part for Dallas.
Yeah, you're not wrong there. I just foresee in my face some frustrated shots of Lucho Acosta, because in my opinion, he's the type of player that can combine with people and kind of elevate players around him and work in combination to make things happen. But if the cupboard's bare in Dallas, where's that going to come from? I just see a hot, sweaty Saturday afternoon in Texas of Lucho Acosta trying to combine with somebody and not coming off and him throwing his hands up and stuff like that.
Yeah, but, and I think there's something else here too. Toyota Stadium in Frisco is undergoing a renovation. They're going to still play there while the renovation is happening, but I believe this drops capacity in the stadium to down to like 10,000 or something. They're putting a roof on the building for everybody, which is absolutely needed in the heat of Texas in the summer. So this has been long coming, and I think fans have been hoping for this for a while. But again, the issue is that this is going to drop capacity. It's going to be a weird environment. Like they for a long time they didn't draw anyway. I'm not sure. I'd have to look up their average attendance last year and how well they did. So you're saying that there's a club that struggled to bring people out in the suburbs of Dallas. Their team has always kind of been, are they decent this year? Oh, they might be okay, but they're obviously not one of the high flyers in Major League Soccer. They're not high profile. They're obviously in a market where it's really hard to get any oxygen. You got a football team that can't win, but still everybody talks about all the time. You got a basketball team that just traded their biggest star and has ownership that everybody hates now. I mean, there's even hockey in town in Dallas. So I don't know. Like, what is that going to be like for Lucho? Because I saw FC Cincinnati fans sort of rightfully saying he made all this noise about how he didn't want to be in Cincinnati anymore and how Chris Albright had created this untenable working environment, toxic, all these things. I want to go back and maybe, play in Argentina and win championships. And here he is not going to Argentina and going to a team that's definitely not going to win a championship.
Yeah, tough spot for him to land is sometimes when you push for change, it's not the change that you're looking for. So to round out this segment, at a glance, on the morning that kind of this news is kind of taken hold, out of the three teams involved here, who would you say won this transfer saga?
Wow. I think I'm always going to reward ambition, and I think Cincinnati is the most ambitious team here. Portland's taking a calculated risk on a younger player, bringing him from Europe. Dallas is getting an MVP caliber player, but I don't think has the structure around him to really get the best out of him. So Cincinnati, who needed to replace Lucho if they wanted to contend in the Eastern Conference, still has a team capable of doing that, has had some other movement, but has proven themselves to be one of the best-run teams in the league. I think they're the winner. I think they are. Even $12 billion into the investment in Evander, I think they win.
You heard it here. Cincinnati wins the Conflict Cup here in 2025 preseason. If you haven't done so already, click the subscribe button on the Morning Kickaround YouTube channel. We are on the march to 1,000. You should be the next, and then your friend should be the next after that. Great deal of things open up for us once we hit that 1K mark, and we want to continue to grow the program. Reach out to us on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com. We are lining up guests and segments for Get to Know Your District and various other guest-related topics. So if you have a suggestion or an idea, throw that over, morningkickaround@gmail.com. Or be amongst the elite who have already donated to our Ko-Fi. If you want to throw in, enough for a cup of coffee or maybe a regular donation, kofi.com/morningkickaround to support the show and take some steps towards sustainability and growth here on the program.